Welcome to Contemporary Retirement. Contemporary Retirement is a public interest program focused on the retirement community. Every program has segments on legal, financial, and health issues affecting the retirement community. Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a major grant from the Family Heritage Trust Company.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored by Family Heritage Trust Company. The Family Heritage Trust Company is an independent bank chartered trust company established by local professionals to provide fiduciary services including fee-based investment advice, trust services, retirement planning, and tax planning. The Family Heritage Trust Company is committed to client service in our communities. For more information, call the Family Heritage Trust Company at 301-631-5900.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a grant from R. Thomas Murphy & Associates, P.C. R. Thomas Murphy & Associates is one of Franklin County's leading law firms, emphasizing estate, trust, elder law, and medical assistance planning.
Welcome to the Is It Legal feature on Contemporary Retirement. Is It Legal focuses on the legal issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Tom Murphy from the R. Thomas Murphy Law Firm with offices in Waynesboro, Chambersburg, and McConnellsburg. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Good morning.
Tom, we've been talking about basic documents for the last several weeks. One of the most important basic documents that we look at is a document that we routinely call an advance directive, sometimes called a healthcare directive, or appointment of a surrogate, but it means somebody that can make medical decisions for you should you be unable to do so yourself.
Right. You'll even hear called lifting wills in Pennsylvania. But they're really important because someone needs to be able to speak for you if you're incapacitated and need any kind of medical service, care, admission.
Well, we have to deal with a regulatory environment that says that healthcare providers are not supposed to talk to certain people unless you have signed a HIPAA release or so forth, or appointed a person a surrogate that gives them the authority to see that information. Mm-hmm. Frankly, most of the population doesn't have it, and the health system has to kind of constantly finesse this thing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it works a heck of a lot better if you have the right documentation in place to begin with.
Yeah, with that, you're able to get through some of those roadblocks, deal with these insurance companies, doctors, hospitals, admissions people. It just makes the process smooth, and usually in the middle of a crisis.
Well, oftentimes in a husband-wife, we're going to appoint each other in the first instance, and we will tend to be expansive as to the number of children that might be appointed. And sometimes, when you realize that children end of life are going to look for consensus anyway, and even if a person wasn't on it, they're not going to ignore them. So many times we'll put 3 or 4 children, and sometimes even more children, on the alternate health care decision after the spouses. So obviously if one spouse is gone, then it would be those children. But we have some quirks that people oftentimes don't think about. I recently had a case where they said, well, we're not putting my son on there because he lives in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And then I asked them, yeah, but you ever go out there to visit him? Yeah, twice a year for a week. What does it mean?
Well, it means that person, if they don't have a document with their name on it, they're unable to act. And so you have a problem long distance.
So you're in San Francisco visiting his son, he better be on that health care directive.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't take it away. It just provides a better safety net for you.
We have another sequence that we see, and that is oftentimes we see a parent living with a child. Mm-hmm. Many times that child is married, which really means not only the child, but their spouse are primarily involved in the caretaking of that parent. So if they had 3 kids, obviously we would typically put all 3 kids on there, but we might put in the alternative, if none of those kids were available, that in-lawed spouse that the parent is living with.
Right. In many cases, they're the one taking mom or dad to the doctor, to the pharmacy and things like that. So why not have them on there if they're going to make a good decision and they're actively involved?
Well, and oftentimes they're not going to do a pull-the-plug decision, but you just need somebody to hold down the fort until those kids arrive. So you've got your son named on that, health care directive. You're living with the son and his spouse, and your son is off on a hunting trip, and you have a health event. Well, the spouse that's living and is actually caretaking that parent needs to be able to act on behalf of that parent if they're incapacitated.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, and you can sometimes take it even further. The children are way out of the area, and you've got a neighbor or a friend who's actively involved. It's the same thing.
Well, we have this recently. I have a lady, she's a widow. She travels with another widow all the time. Mm-hmm. They're on bus trips, they're on cruises. Right. And I said, we better put her on this health care directive, not to make the big decisions, but who's going to be there when you're out traveling? And it's this friend. And so they actually put each other on their health, still had their spouses, well, they weren't spouses in this case, and their children, but they also had that friend that traveled with them.
Yeah, it's just a reflection of reality, and it's a safety net that allows you to at least have somebody you trust involved quickly and efficiently.
I recently have another case. A woman cannot remarry because she'll lose her deceased husband's pension, but she has a significant other. They're traveling, they live together, essentially as husband and wife. Well, the reality, that person needs to be on that health care. Now, I'm not talking about managing their finances. I'm not talking about putting them in the will. I'm talking about if there's a health crisis, who's going to be there?
Right, and you'll have those all the time. You know, the couples are not married, close friend, whatever it might be, you need documents, because without that, you really cannot act, and the doctors aren't going to listen.
And then you have the person that has 3 kids spread all over the world, and then they have a close friend or a cousin or somebody else that's right there all the time. Well, once again, you might put that person on that document, subservient to the children. Once the children arrive, then they're in charge, but you need to have somebody able to hold down that fort.
Yeah, and it's easy to do, it's commonly done, and everybody normally has that person they can go to in addition to the other family or whomever they trust.
Tom, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the program.
You're welcome.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Few things in life are as important as family. Leave your insurance worries to us. Write Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
Every life that meets its end leaves a heart for love to mend. Sister, brother, family, friends are left to carry on. When the loss seems more than you can bear, it's nice to know that we'll be there at Douglas A. Fiery Funeral Home. We care.
Call Ed Lowe to help put your mind at ease.
Welcome to the special guest feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on various issues which are of importance to the retirement community. With me today is Matthew Hurley Auctions. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hi, Mike. Good to be here.
Matt, in our practice, we deal with breaking down of houses all the time. Perhaps someone is downsizing, going to a nursing home, or perhaps the person is passed. And many times the family is just totally stymied by the process.
Completely overwhelmed. Where do I start?
And in fact, they start working on it, and they just constantly find themselves, just doing a little, feeling like they're not getting anywhere.
We get the call after a couple of months, and they say, I've been working on this for months. What do I do? And we can save them a lot of headaches and a lot of time.
All right, so let's talk about how you might do that. First of all, it's fast. You'll get it done right now.
It is. Typically, it takes us 1 to 3 days
and
to
you'll
take
bring
a whole
a
house
crew in there
and set it up for an auction.
All right, so let's do the do's and don'ts of getting ready for a sale. And so let's start.
Okay. Real quick, how we prepare is the first thing is just call us. Don't try to start on your own. What people do is they start on their own, then they just create a mess. Here's the key. If you want to keep it, make a list of it, put it somewhere where you know where it's at, get those things that are important, sentimental to the family, get those out of the way. That's the easy part. Then don't throw anything away. My biggest problem is they throw away thousands of dollars worth of what they consider trash, which is really good stuff that people want to buy. So don't throw anything away. Next, leave it where it's at. That's what I'm having the biggest problem with right now. They're trying to help, so they take everything out of the kitchen, everything out of the closets, and pile it on the kitchen floor. It's best if you just leave it where it's at. Here's an example. If they just take everything where it's at, we can take a picture of it, and it looks like valuable items, and it looks like a treasure hunt. If they throw that in a box, it looks like a box of leftovers. And so it's best to leave it right where it sits.
And obviously, typically, it looks best where it was.
Absolutely. Here's the kitchen drawer. Just leave it there. Now, if there's something really valuable, we'll pull that 1 item out or 2 items out. Otherwise, it looks best where it was. And it brings the most where it was in the house. So just don't pile it on the bed, pile it on the table. Here's the workbench. We're going to pull out the best tools and take pictures, but otherwise, this is a treasure hunt. Someone sees a picture of this and they say, I'm going to bid on that. There's something there. And so it saves so much time, so much headache for families. If they'll just let things where they are, we'll come in, the closet, the bathroom towels, just leave them where they are. Those will bring, we've had closets bring hundreds of dollars because they look neat and clean and organized. It's when you start pounding on the bed that we're in trouble. So I hope that helps people with what to do and how to get started.
Well, as we oftentimes say, you're going to have 4 piles. You know, you're going to have,
That's right.
This is the personal stuff. This is the stuff, you know, the picture of grandma that you need to preserve and that sort of thing. You know, then the second pile is going to be the pile that really is trash. It has no value to anybody. Then their pile might be the Goodwill pile, but we'll be very careful about what goes in the Goodwill pile, because sometimes that stuff has value. It may not, you know, it may be more valuable to sell it, but sometimes it may be more value to let a person have it for nothing. But then that last pile.
That's the good pile. That's the treasures. And so what I tell people is don't throw anything away, because after the auction, that little bit that's left, then you can throw it away.
And then you know what's going on. And oftentimes when I'm dealing with family members that have siblings, and the siblings have all of these opinions that they want to offer up, puts a lot of pressure on the child who's actually trying to manage this affair. And frankly, they're unqualified.
Yeah. I was in a house this week, and they said, I told you not to do that, because one wanted to pile everything in boxes, one wanted to leave it where it was, so it's easiest just leave everything in place.
But more importantly, child decided to throw something away that might have had value, or the other person thinks it has value and it doesn't.
Yeah, and another day we'll look at some pictures of things that you think aren't valuable at all that bring hundreds or thousands of dollars.
And so you do this on the internet primarily, which is why it can stay where it is. They're buying off of pictures anyway. And so many times if the house is okay, you're not going to move it to your auction house. You're just going to sell it right there.
It's going to look best where Grandma had it, or where they had it, because it's beautiful. It's in her home. The corner cupboard looks best in a corner, not sitting in the backyard or sitting at my auction house.
And so that's part of the reason that, you know, it's not take as much time as people think, because you're going to be able to use their staging, and so you're not going to have to remove the stuff.
It actually saves a lot of time and money to do it online.
Now, we encourage people to go on to HurleyAuctions.com, because you have typically a number of auctions going on at the same time, 12,000, 13,000 qualified bidders, and they can see that there's a lot of action going on.
That's right. And when they look at it, make sure they watch those that are closing at a future date that's close, because most of the action takes place the last 20 minutes.
And I think one of the most important things, one of the reasons I stopped going to auctions, many times there would be 1 or 2 items I would have an interest in. You have to stand around 6, 7 hours because you had no idea when that item was going to come up.
I just did that last week with my daughter. Went to an auction, it was all day. Online, you can bid any time, and it takes minutes. And you can pick the items you want, bid on them, and go about your day. Saves a ton of time for the buyers.
And of course, the closeout's going to be the same time, so you know if that closeout is 2 o'clock on Friday, you know, all you have to be really available is at 1:55, and you can go.
Check those last bids, put them in, and you're good to go.
Matt, as always, thanks for taking time.
Good to be here. Thanks, Mike.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Tranquility at Fredericktown Assisted Living and Memory Care provides a warm, home-like atmosphere that promotes daily life enrichment. At Tranquility, our medical director is a geriatric physician. Our professionals support and understand the various stages associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. We have on-site physical, occupational, and speech therapists, as well as around-the-clock licensed nurses. For more information, give Tranquility at Fredericktown a call today, because everyone deserves great care. Let us do the caregiving so you and your loved one can embrace life again.
Come on, Dad, let's go! We're gonna be late! Hurry!
Just one more bid on HurleyAuctions.com. If you haven't visited HurleyAuctions.com, you don't know what you're missing. Whether you're buying or selling, antique cars, tractors, boats, or real estate, you can do it all at HurleyAuctions.com.
Get to know Dr. Carrie Hesley at Diagnostic Imaging Services.
What I find most rewarding is caring for women through our Women's Imaging Center. We have a caring staff that will ease patients through an ultrasound, bone densitometry, breast biopsy, or mammogram. Our health team is sensitive to emotions involved in women's imaging and understands that every woman is at risk for breast cancer. Providing the community with a center that is so dedicated to breast health and the imaging needs of women is something special.
DIS Women's Imaging Center, providing women with progressive care.
Welcome to Contemporary Health Scene. Contemporary Health Scene focuses on the health issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Dr. Robert Mazzie, who is the medical director of the Laser Vein Institute, which is associated with Associated Radiologists. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mazzie.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
I also know you're board certified radiologist, but also board certified in vein disease. What's that all about?
Well, just to demonstrate extra level of competence, there's additional training and certification by the American Board of Venous and Lymphatic Medicine, which I've achieved recently.
Okay, now first of all, kind of describe what is vein illness. How does it manifest itself?
Well, the most common manifestation are the veins that you can see bulging in the lower extremities.
All right, so tell us how veins work.
Well, veins are tubes that carry blood back to the heart, and when they go bad, they stretch and the valves stop working properly, and that's when the symptoms begin.
All right, so let's talk a bit. Obviously, you know, if you're standing up, the blood's going downhill. Not too hard to figure out how to get it to go downhill, but obviously somewhere in this process it has to go back to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
How does that valving work?
Well, when everything's working properly, the muscles in the leg and the tissues pump the blood towards the heart, and the valves prevent the blood from going back down the leg. But as we get older, and sometimes for genetic reasons, that pump mechanism fails, and then the veins dilate and become symptomatic.
All right, so what does it look like?
It can look like various things. You can have veins that are just bulging under the skin. That can be the first sign.
So you have smooth skin, but now you got a bulge sticking out.
That's right. And in more advanced disease, you can get swelling of the leg. You can have skin changes. Some people think they have eczema because it does look like an eczema. And in the worst case, the skin can break down and one can develop an ulcer.
All right, let's have Director Greg pull up a couple of pictures here. And so what we see here, so that's what we're talking about right here. So this is a leg that obviously the blood is not flowing back up and it's collecting in the veins.
Right, and there's large bulging varicosities, there's skin changes. This is fairly advanced disease. There's everything on this patient except an ulcer.
All right, and so this is caused by the blood not flowing back up the way it's supposed to.
That's right, and even though symptoms often manifest lower in the leg, the problem typically starts up near the groin where the vein starts.
All right, so now is this that same leg?
That's the same leg about a month later after we closed the vein that wasn't working.
All right, so now you close a vein that's not working. What happens to the blood?
Well, there are many veins in the legs, and the body is an amazing thing, and the blood just reroutes itself into healthy veins. And the bad vein that is treated with the laser just closes.
All right, now in the past there was a fairly gruesome treatment. What was that called?
Well, vein stripping was the standard for many years before we had technology like small lasers on a catheter, and that typically involved days in the hospital and was generally unpleasant.
And so they actually pulled them out.
They would actually rip them out. That's right. They would
could
hook
not
onto
be
them.
very comfortable.
No.
Okay, so what happens today?
Well, today it's like having an IV catheter placed in the vein, and on that catheter we have a tiny laser that I advance up the vein to the trouble spot. That typically doesn't hurt. Patients don't feel that when the catheter is moving. And we turn the laser on and slowly pull the laser out. It heats up the vein and causes it to close within a short time.
Now, when it says it doesn't hurt, most of the doctors that tell me it doesn't hurt are speaking as if they studied it in a book, but in your case, it's personal.
Well, one of the reasons one thing that got me interested in vein disease is I had the procedure myself on my left leg probably about 10 years ago. And yeah, it truly doesn't hurt. The most uncomfortable part is just having the numbing medicine. The numbing needles you can feel a little bit like any procedure, but it's very minimal.
All right, so it's not one of these, it doesn't hurt, I read it in a book.
Yes, I've lived it.
All right, and part of the challenge here is that sometimes people think that this is just a cosmetic treatment, but tell us what really happens if you fail to address these issues.
Well, this is certainly a medical disease, and left untreated, you can get skin breakdown, leg swelling, ulceration, and in severe cases, blood clotting.
As we showed in that picture, that had to be a heck of a lot more comfortable than the second picture a month later.
Yes, it's very satisfying work to do because most patients, like the patient that we showed, feels much better in a very short time and are very happy they've had the procedure.
Do the person have to go through their physician to access the Laser Vein Institute, or can they direct refer?
I get patients, both. Actually, most of my patients are self-referred, but we're happy to work with referring physicians as well.
And because it's a medical treatment, then is it normally covered by insurance?
Yes, you know, depending on most insurance companies do cover these procedures as long as we demonstrate the appropriate abnormality on ultrasound.
Okay, and obviously that's what you do.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Dr. Mazzie, I want to thank you for taking time to appear on our program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
The Community Foundation has helped create signs of community strength for more than 30 years. Scholarships assist with post-secondary education, and grants support programs throughout Frederick County. Making a big impact. Because of generous donors like you. Add your sign of community strength by creating a fund that supports the causes you care about.
Albright, Crumbacker, Mal & Idell are a full-service firm that provides elder care services including managing incoming bills, bill payment, depositing checks, balancing bank statements, and preparing, planning, and filing personal tax returns. Put your mind at ease and call us today.
Welcome to the Making Sense feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on financial issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Don Linton, retired partner in Linton, Schaefer, Warfield & Garrett, one of the largest accounting firms in Western Maryland, as well as the board chairman of the Family Heritage Trust Company. Welcome to the show, Don.
Nice to be with you, Mike.
Don, you started your accounting practice in 1965, and you grew it into a very significant firm. And I know part of your hallmarks of your organization was really focused on trying to help clients not only make good decisions, but also on avoiding bad decisions.
Yeah, it's a job sometimes, but we develop a relationship. We know as much about the client as we can, so when they ask us for advice, we give them the best advice we can.
And so oftentimes, you hear this stuff, they hear all this junk out on the streets, they have television ads tell them how wonderful things are, and they think, well, it must be out there, it must be okay. But in fact, an awful lot of these types of financial tools that they're looking at are borderline exploitive and oftentimes bring virtually no value to the family.
They're selling a product, right?
And so, one of the things that we look at is reverse mortgages. Now, I wouldn't say that they're almost uniformly bad, but it is rare that a circumstance arises in our office that we actually think it makes sense.
Yes, I've helped some clients through some of those. And in one case, the fees to do a reverse mortgage was 17% of the new mortgage amount.
And they show these low fees, but the reality is you have to keep it throughout your entire life expectancy. And oftentimes we see people using reverse mortgages as last gasp to try to stay in their house. And the cost of that reverse mortgage, if you ended up having to pay it off a year later, could, as in that case, be 17% of the loan amount.
But this was 17 up front.
Well, yeah, but when they
sales commission.
Yeah, but when they amortize it over life, it's relatively low. But if you pay it off quick,
but
then
it's a commission. It's like you're paying 17% to buy security. Wouldn't that be great?
And so you see these low interest rates quoted with these things, but you got to keep it for the life expectancy of that person. And what people don't realize on these instruments is most of them have a proviso in it that says if you haven't resided in that house in 6 months, that mortgage becomes due. So even though you might live another 10 years, that became due 10 years earlier when you moved out of it.
Or the spouse, you die and the spouse that wants to live in the home can't, unless it's designed for that way. You got to be very, very careful. Read the fine print to make sure it's what you really want and need.
And so oftentimes we'll see a circumstance in which you could achieve the same thing with a home equity line, and people at a cost dramatically lower than a reverse mortgage.
Yeah, I'm not saying all reverse mortgages are bad, but you need to make sure you make the right decision. Too many, it's a product someone's selling just to get a commission. You got to be careful.
Now, in your experience, your CPA firm's been around more than 50 years. How many of your clients actually thought it was okay to borrow money and not pay it back?
Not many. There's no free money. Right.
Well, you know, and the fact is most of our clients are responsible, and the thought is they're really borrowing money, not paying it back. Just, you know, it makes no sense knowing that they're accruing a lien against their house, that, you know, it's not being responsible in many of their minds if they actually thought about it.
And I'm thinking ahead now, but I think maybe of all the clients we serve, I may have 2 that have a reverse mortgage, and in their case, that was probably their only option.
Well, we use them occasionally. You know, I have a house that's an absolute wreck, which oftentimes happen when you have seniors who are not taking care of their house, or they're staying in a house that they really can't afford, so they're not maintaining it. And if you spend $50,000, you'll make $100,000, but they don't have any place to get $50,000. And so in that case, I don't care about the fees, because we're going to make a lot more money by fixing it up a little bit than we would make by selling it as is.
There's a time and a place for everything, but you just have to make sure that you don't buy something just because the salesman was very good.
And we saw an awful lot of that, you know, and we saw attractive salespeople, you know, getting people to buy stuff that, you know, just frankly, it couldn't make any sense. And I actually, most of the time when you confront somebody, are you really going to borrow money and not pay it back? That really violates your values, and almost no one has any business doing that.
Well, they're borrowing money to live on. You got to be careful.
Well, in a house, you know, we use a rule of thumb, house costs you 1% a month to own. So if you have a $300,000 house, it's costing you $3,000 a month to own that house. Taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, deferred maintenance, and you don't have that money invested. And if you're sitting there with $1,200 Social Security check, you can't afford a $300,000 house, and you're going south. It really doesn't matter how you do it.
Yeah. Sometimes it's better to move out of the house, move someplace else.
Except at lower cost.
Yeah. Right.
Don, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the program. Thank you from Contemporary Retirement.
Remember a more carefree time? Leave your insurance worries to us, Wright Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
These days, it seems like everything's online, and filling out claim forms and receiving and paying bills online isn't always easiest. That's why we at Quality First Insurance encourage you to just give us a call. Let us help.
Hi there, I'm Paul Sweeney with Quality First Insurance, and it's still just this simple. Our offices are open every weekday where you'll be able to call and speak to real, live people.
No detail was missed. I'm so glad that I turned to Quality First Insurance.
I've recommended Quality First Insurance to my friends who've been just as satisfied.
If you're not happy with what you're paying for Medigap, or more importantly, not happy with your service, give us a try. We're locally owned, and we take the time to provide you with the best. We are Quality First Insurance, and our mission is to provide quality products to quality people. Pick up the phone and give us a call today at 800-745-1411.